Peloton wanted this ad to feel inspiring, a premium gift, a better life, a year of discipline, progress, and transformation. Instead, it became one of the most mocked brand ads of the decade. In late 2019, the high-end fitness company released a polished holiday commercial that was supposed to reinforce everything the brand stood for: ambition. But almost immediately, viewers saw something else. What Peloton framed as motivation, millions of people read as pressure, control, privilege, and tone-deaf luxury. And within days, one Christmas ad had turned into a cultural joke, a public backlash, and a brand mistake that wiped out nearly $1 billion in market value. This is the story of the Peloton holiday ad disaster. Before the backlash, before the memes, and before the market reaction, Peloton was not just selling exercise equipment, it was selling a very specific version of modern ambition. Peloton was never built as a budget fitness brand. It positioned itself as something cleaner, more disciplined, and more elevated. Its bike was expensive, its design was sleek, and its marketing rarely treated fitness as pain. Instead, it treated fitness as identity. The message was simple: this was not just a machine you bought, it was a version of yourself you invested in. Peloton represented routine, control, progress, and self-optimization. It was made for people who wanted to feel productive, intentional, and just a little ahead of everyone else. And for a while, that strategy worked. The company grew by combining premium hardware, a subscription model, and a lifestyle image strong enough to justify the price. Peloton was not simply asking customers to buy a bike. It was asking them to buy into a system, one that promised convenience, discipline, and a better version of who they already were. That made Peloton more than a fitness company. It made it a perception-sensitive brand. Because once a company starts selling identity instead of function, marketing stops being decoration. It becomes part of the product itself. And that meant Peloton's advertising had to do something very specific. It had to make ambition feel elegant. It had to make self-improvement feel desirable. And most importantly, it had to make luxury feel emotionally justified. That was the balance Peloton needed to maintain. Not just premium, but relatable. Not just aspirational, but human. And in 2019, that balance broke. The commercial itself was simple. A husband gives his wife a Peloton bike for Christmas. What follows is a year-long video diary. She rides early in the morning, records short clips of herself, and gradually documents what seems to be a personal transformation. At the end, she shows the finished video to her husband as a kind of emotional thank you.
I didn't realize how much this would change me. Thank you.
On paper, the idea was obvious. This was supposed to feel intimate, aspirational, and sincere. The bike was not framed as a machine. It was framed as a meaningful gift. The year-long footage was meant to suggest commitment, growth, and gratitude. And the final reaction was designed to land as emotional proof that this purchase had changed her life for the better. Technically, the ad did many things right. It looked polished, the lighting was clean, the home was elegant, the pacing was restrained. Nothing about it felt careless or cheap. This was not a sloppy campaign. It was a carefully constructed piece of premium branding. And that is exactly what made the backlash so revealing. Because the problem was not that the ad looked wrong, the problem was that it felt wrong. Peloton believed it was showing ambition. A large part of the audience saw anxiety. Peloton believed it was showing self-improvement. A large part of the audience saw obligation. Peloton believed it was showing gratitude. A large part of the audience saw someone performing progress for someone else's approval. That gap between what the brand thought it had made and what viewers thought they were watching is where the entire disaster began. The ad did not fail because people misunderstood the story. It failed because the story was too fragile to survive contact with the real world. The backlash happened so fast because viewers were not reacting to the ad as Peloton intended. They were reacting to what the ad implied. That distinction matters. Inside the company, the commercial probably looked like a polished story about support, commitment, and personal growth. But outside that bubble, many people saw something colder and far more uncomfortable. The first problem was the gift itself. A husband giving his already thin wife a fitness bike did not read as universally thoughtful. To many viewers, it raised a very different question almost immediately. Why does she need this in the first place? That single detail changed the emotional frame of the entire commercial. What Peloton meant as empowerment, many viewers interpreted as pressure. And once that interpretation took hold, everything else in the ad started to feel worse. Her nervous energy no longer felt inspiring. It felt tense. Her daily recordings no longer felt like a personal journey. They felt like documentation. Her final gratitude no longer felt moving. It felt performative.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Help me.
Thank you.
This holiday, give the gift.
The ad also arrived in a cultural moment where audiences were already highly sensitive to body image, gender expectations, privilege, and the way brands package aspiration. Peloton did not just release a luxury ad. It released a luxury ad that seemed to demand emotional approval for a lifestyle many viewers already found alienating. That made the backlash bigger than the commercial itself. People were not only mocking the ad, they were rejecting the worldview behind it. And once social media turned that reaction into a shared joke, Peloton lost control of the meaning of its own campaign. The company had tried to create aspiration. Instead, it created distance. The ad did not feel like a fantasy people wanted to enter. It felt like a brand talking to itself and assuming everyone else would see the same thing. And that is usually the moment a brand misfire becomes unavoidable. At first, the Peloton ad looked like just another online backlash. A few mocking tweets, a few sarcastic headlines, a few viral reactions. But for a company like Peloton, that kind of backlash was never going to stay cultural for long. Because Peloton was not selling a cheap consumer product, it was selling a premium identity brand, one built on aspiration, confidence, discipline, and emotional self-justification. And once that kind of brand becomes a joke, the damage does not stay in the comments section. It starts to affect the business story itself. Almost immediately, the ad turned into a mainstream media event. News outlets picked it up.
It's very Internet 2019. A company does a thing, some people get outraged, others make jokes on social media that go viral. Company makes some kind of statement, round and round we go. The difference here is that Peloton's bottom line took a major hit, but the company is defending its creation.
Social platforms amplified it. The commercial was dissected, mocked, parodied, and reframed faster than Peloton could respond. That mattered because Peloton was already being priced like a high-growth premium brand, and high-growth premium brands depend heavily on perception. The moment the ad stopped signaling aspiration and started signaling brand blindness, the market reacted. Peloton's stock dropped, and nearly $1 billion in market value was wiped out. That number matters not just because it sounds dramatic. It matters because it shows how quickly a brand problem can become a business problem. Bad ads happen all the time, but most bad ads do not erase that much value that fast. What made this one different is that it exposed a deeper weakness in how the brand understood itself. And once that weakness became visible, investors reacted like they had learned something important. Because in consumer businesses, perception is not separate from value. Perception is part of value. And when a premium brand loses control of how it is being read, even one ad can become surprisingly expensive. The easiest explanation for the Peloton ad is that it was simply tone deaf, but that still does not fully explain why the backlash hit so hard. Because brands make awkward ads all the time. Most of them get mocked for a few days, then disappear. This one didn't. And the reason is that Peloton's mistake was deeper than bad taste. It was a failure of perspective. Peloton created the ad from inside its own brand logic. Inside that world, the story probably felt polished, emotional, and completely reasonable. A premium product, a supportive partner, a year of progress, a grateful ending. Everything worked, as long as you were already seeing the world the way Peloton saw it. But audiences do not watch ads from inside a brand, they watch them from inside their own lives, and from that perspective the commercial carried a very different message. It did not just show fitness, it showed expectation. It did not just show discipline, it showed pressure. It did not just show aspiration, it showed a company so committed to its own image of self-improvement that it failed to notice how strange, fragile, and emotionally loaded that image looked from the outside. That was the real mistake. Peloton did not fail because the production was weak. It failed because the company misjudged the emotional meaning of its own message, and once that kind of misjudgment becomes public, quality stops protecting the brand. The ad can look expensive, the lighting can be beautiful, the pacing can be controlled, the product can still feel premium. None of that matters if the audience walks away feeling that the brand understands itself better than it understands them. That is when aspiration turns into distance, and that is when a polished campaign stops selling the brand and starts exposing it. Peloton could have avoided this by testing the ad outside its own brand bubble. Inside the company, the commercial probably felt polished, aspirational, and emotionally sincere. But that was never the real test. The real test was how ordinary viewers would interpret it without Peloton's internal assumptions. A broader audience review would have helped, a more self-aware concept would have helped, and a version of the ad that felt less emotionally fragile, less dependent on one very specific reading, would have reduced the risk dramatically. Because the problem was never production quality, it was perspective. Peloton didn't fail to make the ad look premium, it failed to ask how real people would actually read it.